Gone, I had eye surgery. And for anybody that knows anything, it was a vitrectomy. They go into your eye, they peel back something, and it causes, you can't see. It's blurry, you kind of lose your sight. It doesn't go dark, but you just can't see. And so Tony and I spent the month camping. God is just so good. And so for the first week, I couldn't read, which is, what I planned on doing going away. And I, planned on leaving my phone, so my phone was always in the camper. And Tony kept working, so he would leave. So I would spend hours by a creek, just sitting there, doing nothing, just staring for hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours a day. I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't see. And when I left, I was weary. I was weary. And I would just sit, and I would do nothing but stare. And whatever feelings came up, whatever sensations, I just let them come. And it was such a reminder to me. And by the way, P.S., I know when you're an introvert, that's like nirvana for you, right? You introverts are like, oh, yeah. The extroverts are going, oh my Lord, no way. But it is both beautiful and one of the most difficult things we can do is to stop in the noisy world that we live in, to get off of our phones, to turn off the televisions, to move away from distraction, and to do nothing. Because we are trained in this world to do things. We are trained to look at something, to watch something, to solve something, to read something, to do something, to be active. And I can do it for a long period of time, but I was forced into a corner to just sit there for 6 hours. And it was uncomfortable because I had lots of feelings. And it was also boring as heck. Because sometimes following God is really boring. Sometimes it is just the mundane of mundaneness. But the glory is this. And this I'm not going to go into, I'll do it in my sermon. The glory is that at the end of the boring comes the answer. At the end of the boring comes the meeting. But it takes time. It takes time. And, Sophia preached on that last week. I loved her sermon because she preached on the importance of Cornelius developing this discipline of time spent with God, of praying and giving alms. And I love the image of Cornelius because he was praying and devoting time, but he was always also doing an action item. And he was giving his alms to God too. And God considered both important. God called out both of these things and said, Cornelius, I have seen you doing both of these things. They have both been an aroma before my throne. Both things are important. There is such an important part in our lives to these disciplines, to the sitting, to the boring tasks, to the tasks that require almost faith. to the faith of giving when we can't, to the faith of sitting quietly when we don't want to, whether we're an extrovert or an introvert. So the introverts can sit for 5 hours. Maybe the extrovert sits for 15 minutes. Whatever, 5 minutes, whatever you can do. But it is imperative to our life, because I believe so often a miracle is a moment of listening away. It's a moment of being quiet away. And God whispered to Tony 40 years ago, more is accomplished in a moment of worship than a lifetime of fear and worry. I have never forgotten that line. More is accomplished in a moment, to me, of true worship, meaning a moment you connect with God and everything pivots and it changes. That's what's come, all you weary. Come gather round me and find rest for your soul. Because an exchange happens between us and God. And that's what happened. I pivoted again in my life, internally. You can't, it's worth everything to me. Because all of a sudden you go, I see. And ironically, my word for this year is see. And ironically, I had eye surgery. Thank you, Kevin Brisbane, for pointing that out to me, because I was like, Doc, I didn't even see it. And Kevin was like, Mr. Prophetic Man points it out. You know, and then I'm sitting there and I see. And God brings this home to me, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But that's what this means. This is why we gather. This is why we come. This is why we worship. This is why we hear. You know, this is why we do what we do here together as a community, to learn and to glean from one another. So with that, let's go into the sermon. Thank you, Dave, for preaching my sermon via music. And Terry, you were up there too.
Also there.
And I have my dictionary Bible. You know, sometimes you just got to touch the Bible. I love the Bible. All right, I'm very short today. It's really weird to... Do I look short? Thank you. I do, don't I? Because usually I wear high heels, and I'm wearing flats, and I feel like I'm like this right now. What'd you say, honey? Yeah, I probably need a little crate to stand on. That would be good. I would fall off. No, you don't. No, don't get it, honey. Sit back down. Yeah, he was up. He was up and getting a crate. Gotta love that man. So our text today is Acts 10, and I'm going to read back from what Sophia preached and then move forward. And I'm going to only go up to 23 because we have the next preacher who is going to preach beyond. So let's start. At Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion in what was known as the Italian regiment. He and all his family were devout and God-fearing, and he gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. The mundane. One day at about 3 p.m, he had a vision. He distinctly saw an angel of God who came to him and said, Cornelius. Cornelius stared at him in fear. What is it, Lord? He asked. The angel answered, your prayers and gifts to the poor have come up as a memorial offering before God. Now send men to Joppa to bring back a man named Simon who is called Peter. He's staying with Simon a tanner whose house is by the sea. When the angel who spoke to him had gone, Cornelius called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier who was one of his attendants, and he told them everything that had happened and sent them to Joppa. In the meantime, at about noon the following day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat. It's so funny that Luke puts this in there. It's so funny to me. It's such a guy thing. Anyway, and while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven open and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. It contained all kinds of four-footed animals as well as reptiles of the earth and birds of the air. And then a voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "Surely not, Lord," Peter replied. "I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." The voice spoke to him a second time, "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheet was taken back to heaven. While Peter was wondering about the meaning of the vision, the men sent to Cornelius found out where Simon Peter's house was and stopped at the gate. They called out, asking if Simon, who was known as Peter, was staying there. While Peter was still thinking about the vision, the Spirit said to him, "Simon, 3 men are looking for you, so get up, go downstairs, and do not hesitate to go with them, for I've sent them." Peter went down and said to the men, "I'm the one you're looking for, and why have you come?" The men replied, "We've come from Cornelius, a centurion. He's a righteous man and God-fearing man who's respected by all the Jewish people. A holy angel told him to have you come to his house so that he could hear what you have to say." Then Peter invited the men into his house to be his guests. You know, one of the things that Sophia talked about last week was that both Peter and Cornelius immediately responded to what the Spirit told them. No questions, no fight. There was an immediate response. So this is a key, pivotal turning point in the New Testament. Not only in the book of Acts, but in the entire story of the early church. This is a huge moment. The gospel is about to cross one of the biggest barriers imaginable. From primarily being a Jewish movement into being a truly multi-ethnic, door-opening, all-are-included gospel message to the world. This is to the uttermost parts of the world. The door is opening. To us, this is like, yeah, okay, we've read this 1,000 times. At this moment, this is a huge breakthrough moment. I can't express how big this moment was. At this time, there were Jewish community, Jewish believers, and then there was the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, this was an embedded belief, by the way, and the rest of the world were the them. You had the Jewish community that were the us. They were the chosen. They were the ones that God had chosen, had pointed out, had called his own. They were the heart of God. And then there were those people. They were them. They were the ones that didn't get it. They were the ones that were on the outside. They were the Philistines. They were the unclean. They were the dirty. They were the wrong. They were they weren't allowed in. They were completely outside of who this Jewish community were. So culturally and religiously, this is a huge leap. Huge leap. So pause. Here's what's happening right now in the book of Acts. The church has spread beyond Jerusalem. By this point, the gospel had been reached and preached in Judea, Samaria, the Mediterranean coast. The Ethiopian official was spoken to. Saul had been converted. The promise in Acts 1:8 is happening. Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria. We are hitting the ends of the earth in this moment. It is unfolding step by step. This is the last step. Peter is being settled as the central leader. He is still the focus in the book of Acts. He's been converted, but he hasn't yet. Paul has been converted, but he hasn't yet begun his missionary journey. Peter is traveling through the towns. He's healing people. He's preaching. He's strengthening believers. He's healed Aeneas. He's raised Tabitha from the dead. His authority, his authority is being established. In the meantime, the Roman Empire dominates everything. The Jewish community is living under this Roman occupation. And a Roman centurion, like Cornelius, God is just pushing. What he represents is the military power of oppression. He represents what they don't like. He represents the them that is oppressing them. He represents Gentile authority. He represents the other. He represents the heathen. He represents the unholy. He represents the occupying government at the time. He represents everything that was opposite to the Jewish community at this time. He represents somebody with whom they did not associate with. And in some ways, this man was the epitome of the enemy that they've been standing against. He was a symbol of the Jewish community's oppression, which is part of what makes this moment so pivotal. I can't even begin to express how pivotal this moment is, and I'm pounding that into our heads for a reason. This moment, the world is changing. This moment is speaking to inclusivity. This moment is speaking to all our being welcome. This moment speaks to changing paradigms. This moment speaks to breaking down walls of division. This moment speaks to breaking down the us and them thinking of binary thinking. There are so many nuances in this text, but I'm going to land on one. But this is a huge theological shift that carries huge change. But I want to also pause here on a smaller personal scale. I want to bring it into us. And that is, there is always this invitation. There are these big moments like what are happening here. God is changing the world, the religious world in this moment through what Peter is about to do. But on a micro level, with Peter, he's also changing Peter. And he's also changing Cornelius. And so I want to bring it into us. And I want to press our own prejudices. And I want to invite us to see differently. And I want to invite us to remain open, to reframe our own beliefs, to expand our own binary thought processes, to expand our own thoughts of who are our enemies politically, or bosses, or people who have harmed us. To press us into thinking about the upside-down kingdom in which we are invited to live. To press us into thinking, what might it look like to live different? And to really live different in a world that pounds us to live the way that it calls us to live. So the question is, will we follow? It's always the question. So looking at Cornelius for a moment, Cornelius was devout, he was God-fearing, he was generous to the poor, he was a man of continual prayer, he was constantly preparing himself. And this is where I went into the mundane, the practice of the mundane, which I'm just going to skip. So Peter is also pressing into the mundane of going up on the roof to pray. And here's where I like the part he was hungry. because he was hungry, but he went to pray anyway. How many times do we go into a moment of discipline and get distracted because we're hungry? Come on. Thank you, Kira. Or something else calls our name. Or how many times do we sit there and go, oh, I forgot to send this email? Or I just got to look at Instagram. You know, I had to leave my phone in the camper or turn it off and physically get away from it and move away from it, so that it was nowhere near me, so that I had no chance of looking at it whatsoever. I actually deleted social media so that I wouldn't get on it. Like, I deleted it knowing I'd put it back on, but I deleted it because I was like, I want to make sure I stay away from it. So the temptation was not there for me to get on. So I don't know anything that was going on. So Peter, even though he's hungry, enters the mundane of praying, and God comes in. But Peter is also staying with a tanner. So his theology, his paradigm had already started changing. Because this is a shocker. Peter should not have been staying with a tanner, because tanners deal with dead animals, and that, according to Jewish purity customs, is you just don't do that. You do not stay with somebody, you do not touch dead animals. That is unholy. You do not do that. So you do not come into contact with dead carcasses. So Peter is already changing and moving, and things are being set in motion with him. So Peter has his vision, and God says to him, do not call anything impure that God has made clean. This is where I want to land. This is what really stood out to me. This is what came up. The real issue is people. God's plan of dismantling centuries of ethnic, religious, and purity barriers is set in motion. This was always God's plan. Always. From the beginning of creation, this was God's plan. Humans got involved, and we started building walls and started creating division and started doing all of these things. But God's plan always were for these walls and for all to be included. The very literal translation of this verse in the Greek is, and a voice again a second time to him, what God has made clean, you must not make common or profane. This word, this Greek word, ekatharizon, means made clean. This is one of the richest words in this sentence. It comes from the Greek word katharizo, meaning to cleanse, to purify, to make clean. This is important. This tense here of this word means God has decisively acted. So sit with me for a moment. It does not mean God is cleaning. It does not mean God might clean. It means that God has made clean. It is past tense. The action is complete. In the words of Jesus, it is finished. It is done. He is looking at Peter, and he is saying to him, do not call profane, that's another way to put it, do not call unclean. Do not call unclean what I have already made clean. Do not look at something that I have made clean, someone that I have made clean, and call them unclean, because I've already done the work of making them holy and pure and clean. Peter lived in a lifetime. No, I'm going to go back. We are part of an upside-down kingdom. We live in a world that pushes us to live the way the world wants us to live. God invites us into God's own upside-down kingdom. It is always an invitation. It is never a demand. This world has a way of being. The world is binary. The world makes the world us and them. It makes things right and wrong. And I have learned in my 65 years that life isn't just that binary. It just isn't. It's more of a continuum. There's more gray in life than there is this clear. And the world wants it to be this clear. It wants it to be us and them. There's an enemy over there. Because if there's enemy, then you can do things to hurt people. Then you can be just in what you do to harm others. And Peter has lived a lifetime in this binary world of the law and God. And God is inviting him into an expansion that changes his life. Now, what's ironic about Peter also is Peter, after he has this revelation, after he walks with the Gentiles for a while, after he preaches, after he changes the whole movement, we learn in Galatians that Peter falters, right? Peter starts moving away from hanging out with the Gentiles, and Paul has to call him out, just like us. We weave in and out of law, of binary thinking, and of our centered set kind of way of thinking. But God is inviting Peter into this expansion, the expansion that we also hear of in Galatians, which is there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, because you're all one in Christ. So Kat Armis, in her book Liturgies for Resisting Empire, puts it like this. We become equals in our shared humanity, each of us flawed, each of us holy. It's a divine leveling that sees the other not as a means to an end, but instead as a reflection of the sacred. God invites us to look at others as sacred. God invites us to look at others, even our enemies, as beloved. God invites us to recognize that we are really all a part of one another. We are not our own. God invites us to recognize that that person that we might disagree with every ounce of our soul, is somebody that God has made clean. There is an upside-down kingdom. There is an invitation that God invites us into. And I think that all of us in this room are saying to me, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, all are welcome. Yeah, yes, that is so true. But the truth is that when we get pressed into something, it's easy to falter like Peter. When we are faced with an injustice, when we remember the abuses of childhood or of the past, when we are talking to somebody who is the opposite in our beliefs politically, when we're watching TV and we just flippantly just say things about the person or people that we're watching. You know, I was reading recently about echoes, and this person was talking about what an echo is. And they said an echo goes out and then it comes back and reverberates. And as I was reading this, because I could read by this point, as I was reading this, it hit me that it's just like you reap what you sow. It hit me that it was James 3 where it talks about the power of the tongue and that we set our lives on fire by our own tongue. You know how? Echo. What we send out comes back. The vitriol that we send out comes back. It's not that God is punishing us. It's not that, anything like that. It is us. The garbage that I'm going out there, and by the way, I'm at the front of the line. Really, I got stuff that, are you kidding me? The stuff that we send out, it's an echo. That energy that we send out, you might as well be smacking yourself down because it comes back. Don't kid yourself. The stuff that you're talking about at home, you're sending it out and it's coming back. That's the echo. As I was thinking about this and the ramifications and the guy was writing about echoes. It was literally about echoes. But as God does, I began to think of James 3, and I began to think of you reap what you sow, and I just began to think of just the natural laws that are out there, and I began to think of energy and how energy goes out and energy comes back. And I began to think of all of those things, and I thought to myself, man, we write this vitriol on, or people do, on Instagram or on mostly Facebook. We're sending that energy out. What if God is inviting us to send out the upside down kingdom instead? What if God is inviting us to send out life and hope and peace and love, or maybe silence? What if God is inviting us not to say these things? What if that is what James 3 is about when he says, how can cursing and blessing for God come out of the same mouth? Or that and again, you set your life on fire by your tongue. I always read that as law. But what if it's read as principle instead? What if it's read as God's invitation to go, you're killing your own self by your own tongue. Please stop. What if it's that? Man, for me, because I'm like, I got pied because my mouth was wide open. So I want to challenge us today. I want to go deeper. So while I was sitting on the side of that creek, something happened, and something came across, and there was a challenge, there was an injustice that was going on at the same time in my life. And I was angry. And it's still going on. And I was very angry. And there is nothing harder than sitting on the side of a creek by yourself. Tony's nowhere to be found. And you're just sitting in your cauldron of anger. And you can't read, you can't distract, you can't do anything, and you're just sitting there seething. Very uncomfortable. And you're wondering why this person is alive. Just being true. And you're wondering why this is happening, and you're frustrated, and you're angry, and you're just, And then you're doing what you know to do, so you're like taking your emotions out, because you're a mental health coach. And so you're taking your emotions out, you're laying them on a leaf, and you're watching the leaf go by, and then you're like, it didn't work! And so then you grab a bigger leaf, you put it on that one. And that doesn't work. And so then you speak forgiveness. And then you hate the person. And that didn't work either. You're just ticked off. And you just keep sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And you're uncomfortable. I cannot tell you what was rising up. But I knew feelings are important. Because you got to feel. And feelings tell you that something has happened. And feelings tell you that you're human. And you have to allow those feelings to come up and to come through. And they were coming through all right. And you have to just know, just let them through and let it roll. So I was letting it roll. I was there for probably 6 hours. I'm not exaggerating, because Tony was gone the whole day that day. Man, I was angry. And I got to the end. It was the end because of what happened, because I was just sitting there and I'm like, this is useless. And by the way, not only was it painful, but it was boring, and it was frustrating, and it was not spiritual in the least. Like, I'm like, Jesus, are you, hello? Like, there was nothing going on that I could tell you. There was nothing spiritual. I couldn't even read the Bible. So as I was sitting there, finally, I heard a whisper come up. And it was this: if you truly believe that all are welcome. And I went, I do. If you truly believe that the table is open to all. I do. I really, really do. If you truly believe that you are invited to live into the Beatitudes, blessed are those who mourn, because that means you will have moments of mourning. I do. Blessed are you who are persecuted for my name's sake, for you will be comforted. The key words are who are persecuted. I really do believe that. Then you know that the perpetrator of this injustice is my child. Then you know that they belong. Then you know that I love them and I love you. Then you know that I have their best at heart and I want what's best for them. And you know I want what's best for you. Yes, I do. Can you trust me here? Can you live into this? Can you live into this? And then what happened was, it was gone. The anger, it was gone. Because I got God's perspective. I got God's eyes. And this isn't the first time that's happened. It happened with my parents. Because I was brought up in a mentally, physically, sexually abusive home. And God did this miracle there, where I have nothing but care and love from my parents, nothing. And it shifted in this situation too, that I could look and say, I see this person. And then it shifted like God always does for the world. Because I want you to hear this. And I have to give the line, because this is the line. The only person that our anger and our bitterness and our fear holds captive is ourselves. You are not hurting that person by holding it. We are not. Whether it be a mother, a perpetrator, I don't care who it is. You are hurting yourself. That is the echo that comes back on you. Now, I am going to spend eternity with this person, but I don't have to spend Tuesday with them. Okay? Okay? I do not. What that means is boundaries. What that means is I'm still going to do what I got to do. What that means is, do I move in justice? I'm not saying don't do justice, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying when you're doing it from a different place, it's different. You still set boundaries, you still do what you got to do. But I can tell you that from that moment to this moment here, I am not afraid. I don't even care. And here's why. Because our life does not depend on our circumstances. That's what the world says. Our life does not depend on our boss. Our life does not depend on, as we get older to our age, on our history. Our life does not depend on our finances. Our life does not depend on any of these things. Our life depends on what God is doing internally. It's not your neighbor. It's not your spouse. It's not your child. It's not your boss. It's not your... It's not whatever story you have going on. It's you. Get alone. Get a promise. Hear from God. Get serious. That's the encouragement. Because your miracle can be a listening moment away. Just a listening moment away. I want to read one more thing from Kat Armis from Liturgies for Resisting Empire. And it's this. Flourishing doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like tending a patch of earth, loving it fiercely, and believing in its potential to give life. Sometimes that patch of earth is you. It's an act of defiance in a world that seeks to commodify and control. Gardens, after all, resist empire in their very being. You are a garden. They nourish without demanding, heal without exploitation, and persist beyond the structures that seek to suppress them. To plant, to build, to seek peace is not resignation, but resistance. It's declaring that we are not defined by the forces that seek to destroy us. We resist empire's attempts to sever us from the sacred. You see, empire calls us to hate. Empire calls us to division. All you have to do is turn the news on, and what you will hear is hate the other side. That is what you will hear. The upside-down kingdom calls us to do it different and calls us to be different. So we plant and we build and we tend to one another, believing that this living This rootedness is resistance too. It's small but profound. It's slow but unstoppable. Our work to love and heal, even in exile, bears witness to a truth bigger than any empire could ever comprehend. We are made for flourishing, and no system can strip away our humanity. God has come that we would have life and have it in abundance. God has come to breathe into us individually and collectively so that we can be salt and light out there from a space of being alive within us. We don't have to be afraid because God's Zoe life is always birthing life in us and inviting us to press that life into this world in whatever way that God has called us to press that life into this world. I don't know what that is for you, but God has a space for all of us to do that from a place of change and peace within us that comes from that discipline of time spent. But today, I want to pause, and Dave, you guys could come up. I want to take a moment, and I want to give all of us an opportunity to come up and let go of any bitterness, any unforgiveness, any vitriol, anything that needs to be laid at the altar, and just take some time with God as a beginning. It's not an end, it's a beginning. As Dave comes up, and as anybody can come up to the altar, and it was really on my heart just to lay the garbage down, just like I did that day. Now, I had the benefit of sitting there for 6 hours. And it took a long time for me to do that. That's why I say this is a beginning. But I want to invite you to come up and to lay anything down that needs to be laid down in this season in your life. Bitterness, resentment, fear, whatever it might be, and just let it go and ask God to step into it. Yeah. So the altar is going to be open for a moment.